Hi everyone, PBE has been out for a couple of days now, and I want to run through some of the best comps that I've been playing so far, even though I haven't had the chance to play that much because of, the queue times. The first one up is Vayne Reroll. Her spell is pretty basic. She just deals a bunch of damage to her target, scales off AD, so pretty standard AD carry. She's pretty much just a stronger version of the 1-cost Vayne from set 1, 2, and 4, so if you are familiar with that, you should be familiar with Vayne's items. The only difference is that it's not only true damage, it's also AD. First up, we want Rage Blade so we can stack up her attack speed as fast as possible. She also has Duelist, but if we're running 6 Duelist, we're not getting that much value. If we're running 2 Duelist, then we're barely getting any attack speed, so we want to go Rage Blade so that Vayne can go infinite. The other two items want to be standard AD items. Last Whisper is especially useful to get through the tanks, especially now that we have defenders in the game, which are essentially like a Vanguard, Ironclad, or Bodyguard. Just essentially gives armor to your entire team, so Last Whisper is going to be useful against that. And then Giant Slayer to make sure we can get through the tanks. There's a lot of high HP targets like mechs, and also a bunch of reroll units are in the meta. And then since we're slow rolling at level 7, we're going to go for Riven 3 and Annihilate 3 as well as Vayne 3-star. And so we can chuck our defensive items onto Riven, but if we are not in the spot to 3-star Riven, we can throw them on Sejuani, because she's also a great tank. She's very much like the set 4 Sejuani that some of you will remember. And so once you hit Vayne 3-star and you want to push levels to level 8, you have a couple of different options in terms of what to add in. You can add in a recon, which is great against assassins, because essentially what happens here is that once if an enemy is nearby when Vayne casts her spell, she'll dash like 2 hexes away from them. So this will help her keep her safe, especially since she only has 40 mana, so she'll proc this quite often. And so the best recon unit to add in, we have a couple of options here with Ezreal, Ashe, and Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa is going to be the strongest one just based off of star level, but with Ashe you get Laser Corpse, which helps her deal a little bit more damage than the others. It doesn't really matter which one you add in, it's just going to be a synergy bot. The other option is to add in Set for a defender. It's going to be really important, especially if you have a Riven 3-star, to make sure that she is even more tanky. And the last option of what to add in is going to be the same thing for all of these comps I'm going to show you, and that's going to be to add in a threat. Essentially, these units don't have any traits, but they're just stronger units. And so Zac is pretty much just a standard tank, 4-cost. He's really strong since he doesn't have any traits, so all the power is in the champion. So you can very easily just slot in any threat you want, whether it would be like Urgot, or Fiddlesticks, or Zac. Rammus is also a pretty good tank. But like these are more so, especially like Cho'Gath, Bel'Veth, Aesol, and Vel'Koz are kind of like carries. Cho'Gath is a bit in the middle though. Next up we have 5 Anima squad with MF carry. With her, you don't really want a mana item, because then she doesn't really deal too much damage with her spell, but you can swap out one of these for a Spear of Sojin. I haven't really tested the comp out enough to know whether it's like core for her to work. But you essentially just want standard AP items for her, but I definitely like Giant Slayer to make sure that you can burst through the tanks, because MF, the vast majority of your damage is in MF. Then also adding in Death Cap to give even more scaling on Giant Slayer, then also JG to make sure your spells can crit. If you are removing one item here for Sojin, it would probably be JG. And then you have Echo. He's kind of similar to set 6, where he gives a giant shield to himself and some of his allies, but here is basically just a full tank. But you want him to have Morello to make sure that he procs, because he still procs this circle around him to apply Morello to everyone. Then you use Alistar as your main tank. He's a very good tank, and then just standard tank items on him. But you can also chuck these same tank items onto Echo. And then you can also drop down for a 5 Anima squad. Like Zoe, Jinx, and Riven don't really do too much for our team, so if we drop those, then we have a lot more options in terms of what to add in. Then we can add in even more frontline, but just adding in more units by taking those out. But in this case, we kind of have all our damage on MF, so it's a bit more risky, but this is kind of more like a Vanguard Mystic comp from the old days, like Aegis gives you a ton of magic resist. Then you have a strong frontline here with Alistar and Riven and Echo, alongside these units that also provide a ton of value. Similarly, you can also drop those frontline units to add in aces, so that you go into 4 ace instead of 1. So now you have a much larger execute range, but the thing is with MF is that she kind of bursts down the entire team when she starts attacking, and so you'll kind of waste a lot of damage this way. But if you have a build with her where she just attacks more often instead of just having a very powerful cast, this 4 ace version will also do really well. Next up is going to be Sure Shot Samira. This is probably my favorite comp. Very simple, easy to play, pretty standard AD carry with 3 items. Don't need any attack speed items for her, really. She attacks pretty fast. She has pretty high base attack speed, and so pretty standard AD items with Last Whisper, Giant Slayer, Deathblade. Last Whisper, again, to get through the tanks, get through the defenders. Giant Slayer to get through the high HP targets, like all the threats are going to be. And then also Deathblade just to get even more AD into Samira. And then you throw your main tank items onto Sejuani, but they can also go on set, just whichever you 2-star first. You can also itemize Aphelios, but it's a bit weird since he has like 3 different spells, like how you itemize them, so I haven't figured out that entirely just yet. But you can definitely itemize him as well if you hit him early. Then here we are a level 7 board, and also these 2 units, we don't really need them. We can also drop these for 3 better units. So one option we could do, for example, is to move the items over to set, and then essentially just have him as the mech, where we add in Leona, Jax, and Vi. So here we have a much more, much tankier team to protect our Samira and Aphelios. So we're essentially just, these 2 are going to get absorbed, and then we're going to have a super tank here, and then other great frontliners. Then we also have a bunch of resistances for him. Then again, also just sticking with this, with the sure shots, it's completely fine. And then again, just add in a threat for more frontline, or you can also add in units like Nunu. It's pretty flexible. Also like Janna as well, being a civilian. And then obviously depending on what her forecaster is, you want to position her depending on that. So yeah, a ton of different options again with this. So Samira is an interesting comp that I've been enjoying a lot because there's a ton of different variations. So next up we have Zoe Reroll. Zoe works very similarly to Malzahar from set 6. With the way that her spell works, she hits a target, it gets infected, deals damage over time. Only thing here is that it doesn't spread to another target when it dies, so she can waste her spell a lot. Therefore, we need blue buff to make sure that she's like constantly spamming it, especially if she hits a target that was going to die anyways, and it dies right away, you just wasted your entire spell. So you kind of need blue buff just to spam it out. And then generally, since it's over time, Morella would have been a great item, but after the rework to it, then it's not that great anymore. It doesn't really deal that much damage. It's more so an anti-heal item. And so we have both Deathcap and Giant Slayer as the 2 other damage items, but other combinations can also work. Now with this comp, we're going to be slow rolling at level 7 for 3-star Zoe and Annie, and you can also chase LeBlanc. And you throw your main items on Annie. Annie is the same tank she was back in set 3 and 4. Deals damage in a cone, gets the shield, and all that. But then again, this is a level 6 board. We can add another unit, and it's just going to depend on your augments or what you hit. Like again, if you hit 3-star LeBlanc, you can add in an admin. So that could be, for example, Soraka or Camille here. Just any of these will do fine. But the admin trait only buffs LeBlanc in, so if you are more so reliant on Zoe carry, you don't want to go for that. You also have Defender, so you can also just add in a set. It's going to do just fine. Basically just filling out any of these traits that works, or again, add in the good old threat. Any threat can also just fit into any comp. So generally, with the Gadgettine, you're going to get an item every turn, so you either throw this on Zed or LeBlanc usually. And then I also like sending Zed into the backline, but especially if you hit 3-star LeBlanc, you can also send her into the backline through Hacker. She can also, since she can stay alive a little bit longer, and then she can also just burst down the carry instantly if you get her on the correct side. Then again, once you get to level 8, what you add in just depends on your augments and also what you need on this side here. So next one up is just threats. Yes, this is actually a comp I've seen it do pretty well. And you either an Asol or Bel'Veth as your carry, just depends on your items. Asol one's pretty standard AP items with like 1 mana generating one and then 2 damage items. You can also run a healing item I've seen that have success as well, since a lot of these units also have very high HP. Bel'Veth, you want Rageblade because she's going to attack a lot, and then whenever she casts her spell, she's going to dash around. And this allows her to kind of like drop aggro and play around the enemy team. And since she's going to be, she only has 2 range, her spell is not showing up here, unfortunately, but she only has 2 range, so Titans is going to be help her stay a little bit more tanky and get more damage, and then BT to heal her up, because she can be dashing, taking a lot of splash damage, beating the enemy people's face. Then I like itemizing Zac. He's usually the best one to itemize as a tank. You can also itemize Rammus as well if you hit him really early. Again, you can also drop some of the threats here to add in more supportive traits, but right now, I've seen the most success with this this version. So the next comps I'm going to show are kind of bonus comps because I haven't really played them too much. This Jax comps was pretty OP on the first day, but that's got nerfed once, and I think now it's just balanced. But the way you play it essentially is these, you play 5 mech, so these 5 units are going to get absorbed. So these are the 4 on the board, and then you make Jax the hero, or the big mech. And so essentially with this spell is that he jumps around a lot and also gets a ton of extra damage with every 3rd attack. So we want him to get one Rageblade on him to make sure that he can go infinite, and so that he can proc that 3rd attack a lot. He works very similar to Legend Volibear for the people who played that back in set 7.0. And then you want blue buff to make sure that he can heal up. I've seen a lot of Jaxes without a healing item, and they've just gotten destroyed instantly, just get stunned once, and then if that carry has Giant Slayer, just out. The 3rd item is either Titans or it's QSS, not sure which one is better. There isn't that much CC, so you can usually get away with not having QSS, but also a lot of the times when you lose with this comp, it's because you get CC'd. Then also throw your tank items on Sejuani, and then the other 2 units are just 2 more bruisers, just to give even more HP to the Jax tank. But again, these 2 can be swapped out for other units, like based on your augments, or you can just add in the threats again. The next one up is Bel'Veth carry. Here you're kind of running her outside the 8 threat comp, but since she doesn't have any traits, it's a bit hard to build a team around her. But she is kind of like a stall carry, like she kind of needs to ramp up with like Rage Split and stuff, so you want a team that is a bit slower paced. I found that adding in Star Guardians and kind of playing around Syndra as a support carry works pretty well, because she works like Thresh back in set 3 for the people who played that, where she puts a unit from your bench onto the board, and so that's going to help stalling, help you win the fight as it goes along. Then we have Star Guardians to make sure that she casts quicker, play both Yuumi to give her heart, and then Echo is just a great tank, and then Alistar, another great tank, also scales with Mascot and or the resistances. And then we have 3 slots, like we don't really need Zac in here, but I just found that Zac is just a great tank overall. So you have a ton of options of what to add in here based on your augments. Like I only tested this out once and it was pretty good. And so what you add in depends on your augments, but you can always just never go wrong with adding in more threats. Or you can, for example, just add in more Mascots for more healing and more stalling. Also kind of get like a secondary carry in with Nunu. Or you can kind of do like a mix where you add in a Leona for more magic resist, and you can add in Rammus again for another threat. Again, just depends on what you need, what your augments are. Looks like the set is going to be a lot more flexible than the last one, which is exciting. And the last one up today is going to be Super Reroll. The Super trait gives you more damage based on how many 3 stars or how many star levels you have. You really want 3 stars, so you just lower level 6, just 3 star literally everything. And then you throw your tank items on Malphite, and then you kind of buy your Mech carry. Like I said earlier, these comps I'm showing now, haven't tested them out too much, but I've seen Vi carry do well, and then you can also play Fiora and Lee Sin, but I haven't seen them do too well. You slower at level 6, the more 3 stars you hit, the more damage you get in. And obviously, the more 3 stars you hit, the easier it is to hit more 2-cost 3 stars. And then at level 7-8, again, just based on your augments is what you add in. But you can pretty easily hit in Aegis, and then if you are running Fiora carry, you definitely want to get in an Ox Force. But then again, you can always just add in them threats, because they can be slotted into any team at any levels. And yeah, that's going to be it. All these comps will be in an Ember album over on Patreon and for YouTube members. So if you are a part of that, then you'll get this Ember album. If not, then you can always just come back to this video. Yeah, that's going to be it for me. A lot of more videos are coming with set 8 once it goes live. That's going to be in about 3 weeks, roughly. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.